yours truly, Stanley Nyerungita. It's a Tuesday. The hashtag is Biashara Tuesday, and this morning we're discussing something that touches you who's watching us, either you're at home or whether you're watching us from the office. Just a look around the office or at home and the kind of feel that it gives you, the interior design. And this morning, I'm proud to, privileged to have two people who are really into this particular business. I'll introduce them. Professor George Washington, a man who has the name of the first US president, Karibu Sana, President of Interior Designers of Kenya. He's also the president of the Africa Council of Interior Architects / Designers, as well as an educator. Karibu Sana.
Asante sana.
As well as Brenda Nyawara. She's an architect, an honorary secretary of Architectural Association of Kenya, a former vice chair of Urban Planning Technical Committee of Nairobi City County, among others. I always like, I guess, to also add other, because there's always a huge on the plate, a number of titles. So I'll definitely allow you to tell us who else is Nyawara and Prof. I'll begin with you.
Okay, Nyawara is also Vice President, Kenya College of Interior Design, in charge of finance and administration, architect as well.
Fantastic. The former vice chair, I'm curious what's wrong with urban planning in Nairobi. You sat in the helm there, in the whole decision making, but Prof, also tell us who is Professor Karani.
Yeah, my name is George Washington Karani, and as you've said, I always tell people, I am not an interior designer. I am interior design. Interior design runs in my blood.
Okay.
That is what I live for. That is what I do.
How many years now?
Right now, let's say from 2005. Yeah, after I graduated from the University of Nairobi, did undergraduate at the University of Nairobi, Master's University of Nairobi, and then PhD at Technical University of Kenya. So I am currently the president of the Interior Designers Association of Kenya, and also last year, 2023, we were able to bring about 18 countries from Africa and outside of Africa in Kenya when we launched the first Africa Interior Design Week. And that's where I was also appointed the president of the African Council for Interior Architects / Designers. The headquarters is now based in Tunisia.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically that's who I am, as much as I'm also the founder and director of the Kenya College of Interior Design. I'm also the founder of Interior Designers Association of Kenya.
Right.
Yes.
Quite a lot on the plate, and in case you're watching us and you're curious and you really want to get into this kind of space, being an interior design, as Prof says, he is an interior design. You can always talk to us, 0795 045 864. Throw in all those questions that you have in case you are having a couple of ideas on how to also remodel your workspace as well as your home. They have the answers that you're looking for, and in case you have some opinions and thoughts, share them with us. But and because largely we'll talk about for someone who wants to really venture into this business, into the interior design kind of business, what do they need to know? And first off, I'll start with, because Nairobi is a capital city, and most interior designers would really, have and fetch money out of this Nairobi urban space. First off, what's happening with the urban planning in Nairobi? As someone who used to sit in the technical committee.
Yes, I used to sit in the Urban Planning Technical Committee for Nairobi County. But I'm also a master's student in architecture, urban design. So if I speak from a researcher point of view, urban design has many facets. So it's not just about the building, there has to be the system that follows it. The traffic management, noise management, garbage collection, water supply, power supply. So all that has to be in sync for there to be a sustainable urban design and urban planning. So when you have something slacking, that's where now the chaos in the urban planning comes up, and you've seen that in Nairobi as well. Yeah.
Is it, does it have to do anything with the bylaws that are existing around even, let's say, Nairobi City itself? Are they archaic kind of laws, or it's the people who are actually planning who are going with the current times and they're just okay?
So we have laws in Kenya governing urban planning, and also bylaws coming up governing development control and new zoning guidelines. Those ones are trying to grow with the city. Where there are new changes, there has to be new laws also put in place. But I do know our issue might be also compliance with the law, or even compliance with the upcoming bylaws that are trying to mitigate the urban issues that are coming up. So we must always at least try to comply, and then again, you have to adapt to the emerging urban issues that will always come up when you're trying to implement a city.
All right. And the reason I'm asking this, Prof, is because even for someone getting into this kind of space, as an interior design, do you need to understand some of these bits? Even the kind of education, the kind of laws and bylaws that govern, if it's a city, if it's Nairobi, or whichever kind of city that we have, or urban center that we have in the country?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll start from what we call a misconception of what interior design really entails. Most people, when you speak about interior design, they think about sprucing up of spaces, making spaces look nice. Interior design has nothing to do with how beautiful a space looks. That is decoration. It's basically like the icing of the cake. So majority of us will find the icing, but we'll remove the icing and eat the cake. Why? Because you're interested in the cake. That thing that has taken process to be baked. Everybody can cook ugali, but not everybody can bake a cake. Simply ugali, weka maji, kulingana na vile unataka, weka unga, as you want it to be. Hard or soft, it's up to you. But baking of the cake, you have to follow a process. So beautification of a space is just but the final part of interior design. But interior design entails a lot. In fact, when we go to some of these, we can call them politics of the construction industry. We say that, for instance, here we have this studio. But for you to allocate space to this particular studio, you must have thought about how the space is going to work. How does it function? We look at safety of the users of that particular space. Air circulation on all these things. How do they? Then we'll also look at its health, safety, function, and everything is about ensuring that you enjoy a quality life in every space that you work in or you live in. So there is a big misconception when it comes to that. And when you go to interior design, you must understand the laws, the bylaws, the what that govern the construction industry. You don't work in any way. For instance, you fixed some lights here, or we are doing some ceiling. Do you understand the loads? Do you understand the calculations? If this light was to come from there and fell on us right now, what will TV47 do? So you need to understand structures. So it's not just about beautifying a space, it's beyond. And this is a discussion probably that we'll need to push, and as Kenya College of Interior Design, we really push on that, the same as Interior Designers Association of Kenya. People understanding who interior designers really are. At what point of the construction do interior designers come in? Most people think, let me do the structure, and then call an interior designer. Yet it's supposed to be even before. At the concept stage, the interior designer and the architect are supposed to be there.
Both of them sit down to
listen to a client. So that as you're doing, as the client is speaking, you're thinking function of the space, what have you. For instance, if you want to do a kitchen, unless I understand, for instance, say, Stanley is here. Stanley will tell me, you know, in my kitchen, I will need an island, isn't it? I want my family to be taking breakfast there. That has already defined how much space I need for the island. I will need a freezer, separate from the fridge. I will need this and this. I need a dishwasher. All those elements in the interior are the ones that will determine how much space I need, even before the architect can now allocate the space. So you first of all think interior, then go exterior.
So most people, do they think exterior, and then now they start to implement on how
it's a misconception,
on how the interior will look like, and just start fixing upon hii space imebaki kidogo hapa, you can fix up.
For those people who have experience, especially for those who do residential, they'll find that many times when they bring in a professional interior designer, there will be demolitions being done. Yeah. You say, this wall needs to go down. Here we need to open it like this. Here we need to open it. We do different things will definitely happen when it comes to that. And those who have experience, kwa wale ambao wamejenga nyumba, they know I'm talking about. This is the truth of the matter. So this is supposed to have been thought before. Everything planned in the interior as we work in collaboration with architects from the concept stage.
So, Nyawara, what's your input here? Prof is here, in structuring, let's say, the kitchen, the bedrooms. This person, the customer says, I want, master bedroom with this size of the bathroom and everything. So what's your input as an architect in all this?
As an architect, I believe all consultants should be part of the project from the very beginning. Because what happens is when you have to demolish or move power points or move water points, it means it's an extra cost on the project. And my work is to advise the client to make the right decisions even before they start the project. So the same way you say, bring in the engineer, bring in the quantity surveyors, bring in the interior designer who will actually create the space you live in inside your house. It saves a lot of time, a lot of cost, and the comfort, and not just comfort, I mean health. The circulation within the house will affect your respiratory tract, how you breathe, how you see because of the light in your house. All those things are very crucial, not just the building standing. And that's the scope of the interior designer.
So, because he had mentioned that if the interior designer had to come in after this house was already built, and the interior designer wasn't involved in all this. So, does it, demolishing, does it have to be the final decision, or there can be some adjustments to this building after this building has already been built?
Most times you'll find if there was no interior designer from the beginning, the consultants had to make assumptions for which they're not equipped to. And therefore the demolishing actually has to happen for the building to be functional inside. Most times it has to happen not because we have the money to demolish and redo a building inside, but because it's necessary. You really, if you did not think about a family wanting to do a kitchen island for breakfast, then it means they can never have any breakfast meals inside, yet that's what they wanted. So for them to achieve that, they'd have to. And let's say they wanted sufficient lighting inside, and that wasn't provided for at the beginning. It means we have to cut out, demolish a wall, create enough space for the window, and then redo just to have sufficient lighting inside that the interior design of the house requires.
So basically it's the whole hypothetical of the cake that you're talking about.
Yes.
For you to eat this cake, na haitoshei watu watatu hivi vizuri, itabidi hii cake idemolishiwe tena, and then have, make another cake. Utengeneze cake ingine kando.
Yeah, because as you said, even as we do the demolitions, it's a matter of interior design, understanding structures. Because even those demolitions are not just done haphazardly. We understand the structures of the building. We know that this one is a load-bearing wall. It cannot be touched.
Okay.
But this one is not a load-bearing wall. So here we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are some places or some clients we've also met, and you just tell them, this one is not possible for me to do anything, because if I was to do it, I'll demolish the whole house. And you explain everything to the client, and they're like, how comes this was not thought
prior to?
And that's why we say, let's bring the interior designer on the table at the onset of the project. Let's bring the architect, whoever that will be working on that project. Let it be a team that is made from the beginning. My master's was basically on that, promoting multidisciplinary teamwork in project development in Kenya, where I was asking, where is the interior designer in the construction team? So many things are going wrong because this guy called the interior designer is not there. And it's just because of the misconception of who interior designers are. we think they are makeup artists. They are not makeup artists, or we are not makeup artists. We are designers, and designers solve special issues. And basically what I call interior designers is I usually tell them, I tell people interior designer are space doctors. When you're using a space, I can still, as interior designers, you can still finish people if you wanted to, by virtue of just a particular color that you selected. Because color has an effect on the well-being of a human being. Every space that you're using. So when you go deeper into color theory, and you go deeper into color psychology, you go deeper into lighting psychology, all those things, they affect our well-being without our knowledge. So that's why it's important, and I'm insisting here today, nobody should call themselves interior designers if they've not gone to school.
So, because actually, prior, I had asked now the same.
Yes.
Do you really have to go to school? And now that you really have to tell us that you have to go to school on that.
Yes.
Both of you come from the Architectural Association as well as Interior Design Association. I'm curious, what's your role? Because at the end of the day, both of you have to work together. If I had to build a home, I have to go to architectures and source a professional one. So what's the function of the Association of Kenya? Do every single interior design in Kenya, are they a member of the association?
Definitely, I'll say no. And this happens to all associations. Even when you go to whichever association, you find not all people that have studied that particular profession are members of that association. Simply because all of us have different perceptions of life and what have you. But if you really want to do something that will bring change, you must come together as a profession. Even in the construction industry, we've been trying, all professionals in the construction industry, and Brenda has been part of it, including Recon, including us coming together and trying to come up with the Built Environment Practitioners Bill, where all of us can work together, which still did not work. So it's just, not everybody will join, but the moment they start realizing the fruits of the association, and us being able to build an association or build the profession, because when you start earning because of you coming together, you will start realize the importance of being in a particular association, because you talk the same language. For instance, we tell interior designers, if somebody was to come to me, when you go to a doctor, the first thing you do is you pay the consultation fee without seeing the doctor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
The trust that I'm going to be seeing a doctor.
Even before you do anything. As interior designers, as architects, or people in the building industry, if we come together, we can all speak the same language. Because I know of so many interior designers who are being misused outside here, simply because this client said, send a concept. The other one said, send a concept. The other one said, and then they tell you, I did not select you. But you put in your time, you put in your everything to be able to send that particular concept that the client requested for. But you've gained nothing from it.
So this interior designer and even architect has to be registered. But it doesn't matter if they're part of any of the associations, but they have to be registered and certified to be in that construction industry.
I do believe they have to be, at least have completed training, the education, for them now to join the association for the interior designers. For architects, now for us, we have to be registered further after graduation by the Board of Registration of Architects and Quantity Surveyors. And it's important because you would find out that being a registered professional, or at least a member of an association, there's at least some code of ethics that you abide by. There's laws that govern those professions that are registered, and there's also continuous professional development that you receive from your associations, from your body that registers you as well. And when there's a like a misnomer, like a problem or a dispute that comes up in construction, then there's a reference to which they can say a member of this association or a registered member of this body had done this in site, and this is how we can address it, because there are, again, guidelines on how to address professional misconduct. So it's all important, and for a professional, you also benefit a lot from being a member of the association.
Yeah.
The networking, I think a lot of opportunities also come through the associations, and it's important that you take advantage of that as well. The issues that face the industry or even face practice are able to be addressed within the association, as opposed to each person trying to do it individually. And the associations have been able to achieve so much. If you just check the activities, their calendars throughout the year, there's so much that benefits members. People scramble to join those associations for those benefits.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So now, as a researcher over the past decade, what kind of changes have you realized when it comes to how interior design is done in the country, and how, well, buildings, either be it, industrial, either be it residential, or just, someone wants their own personal two-bedroom hapa. How different are things done? I'll get from both of you. I'll start with Nyawal.
Let me even say this. If you realize people don't now take photos outside of buildings, most of Instagram, YouTube, TikTok are selfies inside of buildings. And they are looking at the interior design. They want to be in a space that looks nice, that I can have as a background. People used to go to town and take a photo with the city background, KICC. Now what do? They go to nice restaurants with the nice interiors. They do their homes nicely so they can take good photos inside their house to post for social media. That change tells you that there's a really, really big need and a big market for well-done spaces where people feel comfortable, and the current generation, how they operate, which is, I want to be seen in a nice place. That has been something I've noticed in the past couple of years.
Prof, your angle mostly, and you'll tell us why, is now the work kind of spaces. Like for example, where I am right now, I'm working right here. So I mean, this should be also one of your bits. But anyway, you've been in the work kind of spaces for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
What kind of unique changes have happened when you take a look at how buildings were designed in the 90s as compared to right now? Even the kind of generations, because in the 90s, our fathers, used to work there. They had their own preferences. Right now, well, us as Gen Z have our own preferences as at right now.
Yeah, I think so much has changed. And maybe if I give reference to post-COVID, so many things have changed in the workplace. There is what we call ABW currently, that is activity-based workspaces. Previously, those days, people used to love their cubicles, their closed in a particular space and all that. But right now, we are opening all that space to encourage collaboration, interaction. I can be able to see Stanley doing something there. So it keeps my mind busy. And as you're talking about Gen Z, that's basically the kind of environment that they want. We used to have, then will you think of having a beanbag in an office? Having a breakout area in an office? Or all these things?
Oh, yes.
Then that was not the case. But right now, that is the big thing, for instance, when you introduce such luxury or such relaxation in an office. And as I've said, activity-based workspaces, it means I don't have to sit in the same desk every day.
Oh, yes.
What needs to happen is, what exactly am I doing today? Today, I'm doing a quiet kind of task. Yeah? There is a quiet space set aside. So you'll move from this space to the other space.
Yeah.
Today, I just want to have a relaxed lounge area. As I take my cup of tea, there is space set aside for that. So it brings in more performance, especially for this current generation than the previous generation. That's why it's very difficult, especially when you're talking to that person then, that other generation. When you start talking about activity-based workspaces, they're like, I'm used to my corner office.
Oh, yes. They clock in at 8 a.m., break at 11, you check,
Yes.
and then...
That is what they're used to, but the workplace currently is changing. And this is basically why I shifted from residential to workplaces, because we also spend more time at the workplace than the home. Of course, we know for those who have kids, those who are not going to school, they still need more time. But when you look at it generally in life, we spend more time at the workplace. And we are trying to bring a tiny line? There's currently a very thin line between residential and workplace. So we are trying to connect the two currently, so that the way you feel at home
is also the way you feel it.
Is also the way you feel at the office. And most likely, currently, you'll find majority, if you create those activity-based workplaces, they will feel comfortable.
And on the flip side, Prof, I think some 2 days ago I was watching a whole video of a whole evolution of workspaces, or rather how people used to go to work. In the 80s, someone dressing, even the whole attire going to work, and then the millennials going to work as well in a whole different kinds of how they've worn. But then right now, Gen Z would prefer they just wake up with their laptop to the desk computer. So this means again, the office kind of setup has shifted back to the home. So people are now working at home. You take a look at, let's say, a home that initially wasn't designed for that kind of a setup. How do you now come into play? If someone was coming to you and asking you for consultation, how do I set up and design this place? Does it also fall on the whole interior design kind of space? Someone telling you, I want to have a space where I can have my own work office, or rather home office.
Yes, it does, because it's not just the four walls, but also your furniture, the ergonomics of your chair and your desk, provided you're going to sit there for 8 to 10 hours maybe per day. That also falls under interior design, because as a human being, there are measurements which are conducive for your comfort, also for your safety, for your back, as you work for those long hours. The interior designer who understands the human proportions is able to advise you on the kind of office desk, office chair. And not just even that, the lighting for workspace is different from the lighting for recreation. And a professional is the one who can be able to guide you on that. Other aspects may be ventilation. Maybe for your house, you didn't really provide for a space where you're just sitting and working in one single space. Maybe now you might have to rethink that, because if you're cooking and you have an open kitchen and all that is coming into your house and you're spending all this many number of hours working, then that's going to affect your workspace. I think also nowadays, because of Zoom meetings at home, people want a background that looks,
nice.
Nice.
Not just plain.
Not just plain, and so they need a professional to guide them. Otherwise, you can just go and select colors or put together something you think can be a home workspace, but then it's not professionally done. Ends up with a lot of glare, ends up hurting your eyes as you're using your computer. Your back is cracked up because you cannot really sit for hours. All that, you need a professional to guide you.
So does this mean on the onset of the planning of this, be it a residential, let's say a 5 kind of story building somewhere in Nairobi City, or just someone's private home, on the onset, does it, now for both of you as an interior designer as well as an architecture, do you leave out space for, in case you will decide to plan or rather have something in the coming years, this space can be used for something? Because you always have pre-planned kind of setups. You, as a family, you had not really prepared to even have a huge family, and then the home was set up, for example, for that. The customer told you just need a 2-bedroom because we would intend to have only 2 children. But then God decides to give you and grant you 10 children. Do you again come to change the kind of setup of how this 2-bedroom and just try to design how it will fit the current family that wasn't there 10 years ago? I'll start with you, Yara.
So design is not just one way. So sometimes you come up, those issues come up, or like I can say, design problems come up as time goes by. And it takes a professional with a futuristic mind to understand, I'm designing a bedroom or a living room, but one day they might move out and another family comes in that requires office space or even a space for a new baby. So even being able to rethink and refurbish a space requires some skill. Being able to also work within a restricted kind of environment where you don't even have enough space to put an extra bed, but now you have to think also furniture design. How do you have the bed that has a couch below, you know? So some of those things you really have, it's a lot of thinking, a lot of training that goes behind it, and creativity.
In my bed seat I can also...
You can do so much, but you have to have someone also who has the training and experience, and they're able to now give you a solution that is limited, that is not limited to what you can understand of a space. You have to design something that can hold even someone, let's say a member of the family becomes pregnant, meaning there are spaces that are now going to be too small, or an elderly member visits, or someone becomes sick, now they can't go up the steps. All those possibilities are endless. Only a professional can foresee that and design something that is universal and can be accessed by anyone in any condition.
All right. Prof, even as you come in the whole bit of matters, the kind of foreseen and universal and sustainability bit of it, when you take a look at a decade ago, the kind of sockets that we use at home, they did not provide for the USB kind of, you know, charger. Yeah. So right now they are there. You can, without even having the to plug in the 3-port, you can just have the USB in it. This wasn't there, you know, years back. Tell us about how you think about some of these things, the ecological bit of it, the sustainability. You look the current changes, the technology. You say 15, 20 years from now, this will really be needed. So we'll have to design this space to fit 20 years from now.
All right, I'll use the human body as an example. Yeah, that is talking about flexibility when it comes to buildings in future. You know, when, for instance, let me use a woman. When a woman was born, she was a girl, okay? But everything womanly was in her. All right. So you'll find that as she grows as a woman, it reaches a point where, for instance, she will get pregnant. Okay. And there is no woman that is pregnant that will ever tell you that this skin is so tight because my tummy is huge.
Interesting. Okay.
There is no man with a big tummy that will tell you that this knee is so tight because it's bigger than it was. Okay. So it means the exterior of the human body, God thought of the future changes, but those future changes were determined by the interior features that he had already put in you as a person. So it means our buildings need to have thought of all these things that might come in future. We instill them so that our structures are flexible when it comes to the future. Currently, it's not flexible. It's either you put the whole building down, or you try and custom make. Of course, there is what Brenda was talking about, multifunctional furniture. For instance, it's a bed during the night, it's a sofa during the day. You can lift it to the ceiling and have a workspace within that small space. That is,
and even, sorry to cut you short, right now you're seeing a number of organizations deciding to go into residential setups and just buying already residential, but they're now designing. So this house was built for a family to live in. But then this organization decides, well, we're going to set up organization here, so that means they have to again design this office, this home that used to be a home now into an office.
Yeah, basically that is happening a lot. And that one I can also relate it to cost. Simply because you can go to Lavington, get a property that is 1 acre, and you'll be paying probably 400 to 500,000. If you are to go to a typical office block and you calculate the square footage, you'll end up paying like 2 million and above for the same space. This one gives you flexibility to do what you want. The other one doesn't. So when you see most organizations shifting from the typical office blocks, to the so-called residential, that thing that really controls is cost.
And I'd love Nyawara to come into this. But this home was not designed to be an office.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just getting there.
Right.
The first drive is not even the home.
Yeah.
It's the cost, because costs will be low.
Will be low, yes.
Then when you get there, definitely you know the operations. For instance, TV47 operates differently.
Yeah.
Kenya College of Interior Design operates differently, and you're welcome by there. We have a graduation this coming Friday, 26th, at Parklands Baptist Church Pavilion. Okay. You're welcome as TV47 to come and celebrate with us. It's our first inaugural graduation.
All right.
Yeah. So you operate differently, we operate differently, another organization operates differently. So what happens is you get to the place and modify. Remember, the space already has this homely feel.
Yeah.
Some features are already neat, like the kitchen is already done if you want to have your meals there. Yeah. You have a compound, for instance. I'm just talking about maybe the single family property kind of. You have all those amenities. Then you custom to how your organization
can be
functions.
Okay.
So those things, we are doing so many of them right now, especially. Yeah. So that is basically how it works. So you custom it to how your organization works according to your structure. So it still works very well.
Nyawara, your thoughts on this? It has become a trend, really. Just really changing the kind of family setup homes into now an office. And well, maybe someone used to live there, maybe the original parents probably passed away, and the children are wondering, we no longer live here. Let's sell this or probably rent it out for an office kind of setup. This home was designed, let's say 20 years ago, to be a home. It doesn't really have some of these amenities that it needs to contain. It was designed to have, let's say, 5 family members at most. Right now, you're having an office with more than 30 people here. You have the kind of home and rather the compound size and everything. How does that come into play?
Okay, most of the companies talking about, the ones that have 30 plus people may not be looking for the smaller residential areas where they can now do a change of use to professional office. But you do realize maybe the demand for office space is increasing, and yet office space might not be as available because of cost, or maybe just because of space as well. And then Nairobi, we're also moving to a space where we may not be building new buildings. We now start to refurbish what we have. And the abandoned house, instead of it remaining empty, might as well make economic sense by becoming a professional office. And the organizations that prefer those ones actually find more comfort being in that single organization compound than being maybe 3rd floor, 15th floor of an office tower where they don't have the flexibility as well.
All right. Interesting. Before we get into how AI is playing out in all this, Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja is proposing a whole having story buildings that have 75. And I'm pretty sure now for both of you, it really touches on how, if this is going to actually be there, on how this is going to even work. As someone who's sat in Nairobi City Council and saw how things are working, if we're going to have this kind of 75, then that means that both of you are still going to be there. I'm curious of your thoughts on the same. I'll start with you, Nyawara.
There are cities that have built towers 75 floors and above. There are cities that have achieved it. And you find that, again, it's not just the building. Let the infrastructure also be done. It goes back to what you're telling us. Yeah, when you have the road, the sewer system, power supply, water supply, enough garbage collection systems, people are able to move to work and to recreation places efficiently, taking care of security, taking care of people down the hill who are affected maybe by the runoff from the stormwater drainage. I mean, if you take care of all of that, can go a mile high. Prof, I've done that.
Prof, do you think interior design is quite able right now in Nairobi City having about 75-story buildings?
Yeah, I think I'll start from where Brenda started. Because we always say infrastructure precedes any other development. You see, by the time you're saying 75, I need to know how many units will be on those 75 floors in a particular area.
Right.
Does the infrastructure support the things that she's talking about, the drainage, electricity,
Parks.
Water, parks. Because currently what we've seen is we've started, for instance, I don't know where you lived. Some of us lived in the village. I'm looking at most of our kids are living in what I call concrete jungle.
Yeah.
All they know is their house. For you to enjoy a green space, you have to wait for a Sunday or a Saturday to take them away. That is 1 day out of 5. So it means the environment that they are being fed with 24/7 is these 4 walls. Simply because you are on, let me use that 75th floor.
Yeah.
You are on 75th floor. Kuna ule ambaye anasema, hey, hata kama nimesahau kiberiti, acha tu nikae kule juu. But that's not really a problem. You can even go more, as she said, but infrastructure has to be in place. Of course, for the professionals in the construction industry, if these things are done professionally, it will be a benefit, and most will earn from these particular developments. But before that happens, our push is, can we look at our infrastructure first?
And to ride on that before we wrap up that whole
Yes.
bit of the 75-story building, is it in our culture really? I mean, you're saying other cities have done it. As much as you're pushing for the whole bit of urbanization, but every kind of city out there have their own kind of culture. Is it in our Kenyan culture to have whatever you're really talking about, a whole 75-story building, or rather people just prefer having and atafute nyumba in Kitengela and just have their own private home kind of space?
If you look at, for instance, Kileleshwa, Westlands has also started. We are having this high rise.
Yeah,
of course, most of them are for sale.
Yeah.
And majority of people that can afford would prefer living in these apartments here, closer maybe to where they work and what have you, rather than having to commute
Into the metropolitan areas.
all those areas.
Yeah.
Those metropolitan areas will work best if in future we can still urbanize some of those. Like for instance, decentralizing everything from Nairobi city and having something, we know of Konza city that is happening on that side.
Yeah.
That might push some people to that side. So if I know that most likely I'm targeting to be part of this Konza city, for instance, I'd rather start getting somewhere close so that I'm closer to where I'll be working. So you'll find when you do your calculations, for instance, there's a time I used to live in Earth River, isn't it? And I was working in Westlands. The office is in Westlands. For me to get, by then we didn't have the expressway.
I was actually about to ask you that.
We didn't have the expressway.
Yeah.
And I knew if I left the house at 5 a.m., I'll be in Westlands by 5:30. But if I left at 5:30, I'll be in Westlands at 8 or 8:30. So that's already stress.
Yeah.
If you do your calculations, yes, you might be paying. You might be thinking you're paying cheaply there,
Yeah.
but if you add the costs of time, stress,
It comes
What have
to
you?
add.
and you add to that, you'd rather just get somewhere nearby, live nearby, and make your life easy.
Right.
So I know it sells, but at the same time, what will push people away is these issues that we are talking about,
Right.
infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
Prof. Nyawara, we have about 5 minutes in this conversation, and I'd love us to also talk about AI as we also, wrap it up and talk about the future of interior design. And AI is here, artificial intelligence, and it is a conversation that you cannot really run away from. So I'm curious, I'll start with you. How are we, and how can an interior design or someone who is looking to get into this space, how can they use this space of AI to actually make money?
Yeah, I would say use AI as a tool. Use it to help you.
Yeah.
AI also can't really solve problems that are intricate to a project. So it's for you to also have your input, but use it as a tool. Because 20 years ago, we did not use computers to draw buildings, but now we do. Computers came in and helped us, and now AI is helping us. So by all means, use the tools that we have, and then don't just rely on the tool. As a professional, I think there's more you're trained on that you need to still have your input in it.
Prof, do you think AI might... I'm looking for the word to really phrase it, but basically, do you think it can have more interior designers out of their jobs?
As you said, not really, unless you want to, as an individual. Because what I know about, and she's talked about computers, and I was about to talk about that, the computer gives you what you give it. AI is basically data being fed by individuals somewhere. Because it's not something that maybe came from the blues and started saying it can design, blah, 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 blah. I believe there is some coding happening somewhere, so data is being fed. Like just for instance, when we use things like ArchiCAD. ArchiCAD, where we have all the walls, presets, it's you just adjusting to use it. Then you also have the furniture templates. You can input furniture templates. You can even import furniture from a different source and use in your interiors. For me, that is already AI began even before. So it has just eased your work and made your work easy. Now you can do faster. For instance, when we used to do, for us, the University of Nairobi, our final project, we just used our pens to draw. We never used computers. Yeah, and that took longer to do than right now. You can sit on your computer today, do something, and faster, you can achieve some results. You can render. Then we will draw and start coloring how the interior will look like. You start doing your pencil work, your watercolor, your everything. But now, I know, I'll just go there and input textures to how I want the space to look like. I can reproduce TV47 Studio the way it is. And the only thing I need to do is to take snippets of the photos of your backgrounds, and I will go and insert in my drawing and still give you the entire look. So it's still AI in use. But as you said, don't let it do for you. You are the one in charge. Use it for your own benefit.
Are the young interior designers, the upcoming, do they know this kind of knowledge, Nyawara?
In training, I expect them to at least be open to it because Kenya College of Interior Design, they are taught how to think and resolve the problems and use what's around them. So when they're able to go through the training, they understand the use of AI. In fact, they shock us by bringing in even more ideas than what we know in the profession. Are they because again, when you take a look at even now, let's say the whole deco that is there, Kenyans are now embracing the whole traditional kind of setups and even the whole kind of design. When you go to, let's say, even workspaces and even at homes, they're having an African kind of a touch. Now you're saying, so that's for the icing on it. But basically, even for the design, how different are things? What do people want right now? The kind of clients that are there, what do they want? Actually, let me say clients want a variety of things. There's never really like one thing the client wants. Most times you'd find there's a trend in the industry. And so as a professional, you're open to designing a Swahili home, an African home, postmodern kind of interior, something based on a futuristic idea or a classical home. So you, as a professional, as we are trained to have that wide open mind, but of course you have to understand the trend as well.
Thank you very much. Can I take that as your last thoughts?
Yes.
And Prof, your last thoughts in a sentence, advice and all that as we wrap it up.
All right, thank you so much, Sanli. And thank you also for the viewers of this particular show. What we'll just say is that even as we talk about interior design, let's realize that the interior designer needs to come from the onset of every project that is happening. The interior designer is not an afterthought after you've put up your building. If you want better results, please let the interior designer, together with all other consultants, be in the very first stage.
Thank you very much. Professor George Washington Karani. He's the president of the Interior Designers Association of Kenya, well, among other titles, as well as Brenda Nyawara. She's an architect, as well as Honorary Secretary of Architectural Association of Kenya. Thank you, gentlemen, lady, for your time back at home, wherever you're watching us from. I hope you've learned quite a lot. You're thinking of starting a whole, designing a home.